Good afternoon, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Now we will come to today's news. While Elon Musk is in at Twitter, and he is firing everyone as he pledged to do, and I am here for it, I think everybody else has been on Twitter for the past several years and is not of wild leftist bent is here for it as well. Twitter's moderation has been a bleep show for a very long time. They've been banning people willy-nilly, right and left, people ranging from Alex Jones to the Babylon Bee to Jordan Peterson. For a wide variety of unspecified crimes, they can never quite be specific enough as to what exactly was violated. Their standards are incredibly loose. Somehow, the Ayatollah Khomeini, he's fine, while he's railing about how the Jews should be destroyed. But somehow, Jordan Peterson is banned for saying that men cannot be women. Twitter's content moderation policies have basically been a weapon on behalf of the left. And what it's meant is that everybody has to skirt all of their rules. So there are things that you just can't say on Twitter. So for example, when there was controversy over their ivermectin, was good treatment for COVID-19. You couldn't even claim that ivermectin wasn't good treatment for COVID-19. Even though it did work for a lot of people and is still controversial as to how well ivermectin works, you still could not say, even though the evidence showed that widespread masking did not stop the transmission of the virus. You weren't allowed to say that vaccines were not effective in stopping the transmission of the virus. These are things you were not allowed to say on Twitter. If you said them on Twitter, then you would immediately have your account suspended. The number of personal friends that I have been suspended from Twitter is incredibly high. And we're talking about people who are not wild IP. We're talking about people like Dave Rubin. We're talking about Babylon Bee, Lives of TikTok, Jordan Peele. Like, all these people have been suspended or banned outright from Twitter. Well, now Elon Musk is back. He is in charge in his firing everyone as well. He said he was going to fire 75% of the staff. And frankly, I think that's low. He needs to go a little bit higher than that. Because the simple fact of the matter is, Twitter is a bloated bureaucracy. It's filled with people who had jobs like diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. It is a platform. It is a platform for speech. Elon Musk understands that now. Elon Musk did say yesterday. And he is correct that this does not mean that there are no standards at Twitter. It's not as though you should be able to get on Twitter and actively threaten violence against other human beings. And it's even possible that Elon Musk has his own Overton window. And the Overton window is the window of acceptable speech. And we all have it right in our own lives. There's certain people we don't want to be friends with, we don't want over their houses, because their opinions are just too vile, right? You wouldn't want a skinhead Nazi over at your house with your kids, because your Overton window is personally not big enough to encompass that. Nor, in my opinion, should it be. You shouldn't be forced to have that person over at your house. And if you own a platform, like Twitter, presumably there will be an Overton window beyond which there are certain opinions that are just too far, they just go too far. But those should be as close to the legal line of free speech as humanly possible, meaning that there are certain things that are not protected by free speech in the United States. And pornography is really not protected by free speech in the United States. And we like to pretend that it is. But historically speaking, it just was not. The idea of a violent threat that is not protected. Full-on defamation is not protected by free speech in the United States. Well, if you're a platform, what you should try to do is to as close to the First Amendment line as humanly possible, because indeed, that is what you were created to do. If the whole idea of Twitter is that it was a digital town square, and treat it like a digital town square, meaning that it is a neutral forum for discussion. And that's going to include crazy people who are over there on the side standing on an apple box, and shouting, and everybody will. The good news is that unlike that town square, where that person is noise polluting, and the digital town square, you have a mute button, and you have the ability to algorithmically shape what it is that you wish to see. And I think that Elon Musk understands this. So the hue and cry at Twitter is just insane. People at Twitter are weeping openly online. You're seeing people from the left and people in the media who are just, we're going to run screaming from this place. What are we going to do? We're gonna have to leave. Taylor Lorenz, of course, one of the worst actors online, she's leading that charge. Hilariously, she's actually, I might need to tweet out my sub stats so people can see my stuff over there. Substack is also a free speech platform where a bunch of people tell all runs hates are including loads of TikTok, by the way. Well, now according to the Associated Press, Musk has taken control. Twitter announced to the CEO, CFO, and the company's top lawyer. To people familiar with the deal said Thursday night that people wouldn't say if all the paperwork for the deal had been signed, or if the deal had been closed, and said Musk is in charge of the social media platform. He fired CEO Parag Agarwal, CFO, Ned Siegel, and Chief Legal Counsel Jaya Gadde. Now that person wants to be identified because of the sensitive nature of the deal. Now, you saw the guy get absolutely eviscerated on one episode of Joe Rogan. Tim Pool just destroyed her on Joe Rogan. Right, just asking her about how exactly you make these decisions as to what is valuable and what is not. You had no answers whatsoever. Agrawal has presided over the widespread feeling that Twitter is a forum for the left. And if you say anything that violates the most strictly held standards, then you will be banned. A few hours after the firing, Musk tweeted the bird has been freed. You know, just from a pure objective level, Musk is a lot of fun. I mean, is it okay to say that a billionaire is fun? I know that we're supposed to believe that billionaires are very dour or world's controlling. They'll have to do gooders like Bill Gates, who I guess is having fun on the side of his pool house. But aside from that, he's supposed to be, you know, a person who's out there to very serious people. I love the fact that Musk is not totally serious. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful thing for the world. The departures came just hours before a deadline set by a Delaware judge to finalize the deal on Friday. She threatened to schedule a trial if no agreement was reached. Although they can quickly, the major personnel moves have been widely expected. They're almost certainly the first many changes the Tesla CEO will make. Musk privately clashed with alcohol in April immediately before deciding to make a bid for the company, according to text messages later revealed in court filings. About the same time, he used Twitter to criticize Gadde, the company's top lawyer. His tweets were followed by a wave of harassment of data from other Twitter accounts. This is one of the garbage lines and media lead to us, is that if you tweet about somebody, and then a lot of people don't like what that person said, and they harass that person, that's your fault. Okay, as probably one of those harassed people on Twitter, I've never complained about that. Because guess what? I've got a mute button. I have the ability to not look at Twitter. Like Twitter is a wonderful outlet for me to be able to tweet my thoughts. It's also a place filled with stupid people, and annoying people. And you know what I'm able to do? I've never called for a single person to be banned from Twitter. I have not, because I have a thing, it is called a mute button. And I can use it whenever I please. Forgetting and loving your Twitter employee who also has public policy and safety. The harassment included racist and misogynist attacks, in addition to calls from us to the harassing tweets lit up once again, this notion that you are responsible if you criticize a person, and a bunch of other people decide to act in bad fashion against that person who are then responsible for this. This ends political speech in the United States, because guess what? We all criticize each other. And yes, there are a bunch of people out there who act in stupid fashion, and then harass those people. Does that mean that you are responsible for the harassment? This is the game that the media loves to play. The media are particularly angry here, because you have to understand what the game here was, particularly for the mainstream media when it comes to these big social media platforms like Facebook, or like Twitter. And it's true for all of them. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, like the media have their standard. Here's what happened. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, there were only 3 major media outlets, the TV outlets, and you had some newspapers. Like the New York Times and the Washington Post, nothing else had mass readership. Then the rise of the internet happened in the 1990s, pretty much the late 1990s started by Drudge Report, then all of a sudden, you had a wide variety of outlets that people could access for their news. Now, I'm old enough to remember the beginnings of the news internet, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, when suddenly everybody could get their information from different places. And the way that you would access that information typically is you'd bookmark like 10 pages. And nobody has ever used a bookmark. In the next generation. I'm talking about my generation, the millennials, what we would do is we would actually just bookmark like 10 pages, you go in the morning, and he checks, you'd go to your bookmark for Fox News, you bookmark for Drudge Report, your bookmark for town hall or hot air. And this is what you would do. Then these big social media platforms sprang up, and he started garnering billions of eyeballs. And so all of these news outlets started to move their feed onto the social media platforms. These became the place where you would access your news. So from now on, if you want in your cultivated newsfeed, it was much simpler than hitting 10 different bookmarks, to just have a cultivated newsfeed that brought up all the news you otherwise would see. And there was some algorithmic programming that allowed you to see some news that maybe you hadn't clicked on before. That's the way that the newsfeed works. And the same thing was true of Twitter, right? You would follow all the accounts of those people who are already bookmarking. And then you would get the news from Twitter. And what this allowed is for the possibility, because it was all via Facebook, or all via Twitter, or all via Instagram, and allowed for the possibility that all of those major outlets would just turn the spigot, and suddenly, all the places that you were following would just be silenced. And suddenly, you were getting your news, again, from the mainstream media, all the people that you would had been attempting to avoid for 20 years, suddenly, you're getting your news from that, again, you had to hear from the Washington Post or the New York Times, you couldn't hear from Daily Wire or from Breitbart, or from any of the other right-wing outlets that you normally would follow. And the mainstream media loved this. This was their favorite thing in the entire world. They loved it because it re-established a media monopoly that they had lost with the rise of the internet. And naturally distinct a lot of people off. And one of those people was Elon Musk. And you ticked off the wrong billionaire. Because it turns out that it's going to be hilarious, because 100 years from now, when the history of the United States is written, an inflection point is going to be Twitter banning the Babylon Bee for a headline about how men are not women. That's an actual historical inflection point. That's it, because the left got so crazy over their skis on this. They got so bullying and vicious to the heads of the social media companies that the heads of the social media companies decided that they were basically going to crack down on anything that violated left-wing scruples. Because that's what happened here. I mean, if you actually look at the difference from what Jack Dorsey, the head of Twitter, used to say about free speech, what he started to say about free speech about 5 years into his tenure at Twitter, we look at the difference between how Mark Zuckerberg used to talk about free speech versus how much Mark Zuckerberg talked about free speech just a couple of years later. He can see it radical shift that happened? Well, Dorsey and Zuckerberg used to talk about free speech in exactly the same terms that I'm talking about. Free speech should be the broadest possible window that allows for all people to have conversations. And if you don't like it, you can turn it off. I keep setting the speech that Zuckerberg gave at Georgetown in 2018, I believe. And when she talked about this, right, he openly talked about we need to have a broad platform for speech. I'm not the great arbiter of what's true and what's not. It is not my job to determine what you should see and what you should not see, because you're an adult. And then, because of all the pressure that was brought to bear in the aftermath of the election of Donald Trump, all of these social media companies collapse. Then you start to see Democrats and members of the media start blaming all these social media companies for all the ills of the world, and all these social media companies which were treated up till then as wonderful, wonderful things, because after all, these wonderful, wonderful social media companies had allowed for things like the Arab Spring. Remember this, or they allowed for the election of Barack Obama, or all the talk in 2012 was about how genius the Obama team was from manipulating the data via Facebook in order to win re-election was a genius team. And of course, when Trump's team did it with Cambridge Analytica, then all the social media platforms became super bad. And Facebook then became very bad. So in the aftermath of Trump being elected, which was a world-shattering event, for the left, they started to push really hard on the social media networks, because it couldn't be that Hillary lost cause she was a crap candidate, because she did a bad job. She must have lost because the social media networks had been penetrated by the Ruskies, or the social media networks are too broad-minded. And free speech is a real dangerous thing. Free speech can be undermined by free speech. And so they started to clamp down, and the social media bros, because they were weak-kneed, also started to clamp down, or they pressed on that pressure to the user. Dianne Feinstein openly threatening Mark Zuckerberg, senator from California, saying, if you don't regulate yourself, we will regulate you. And so Zuckerberg and Tim would say to these legislators, okay, fine, please regulate us, right? Create a system of regulation that makes for an even playing field. And Democrats say no, it's up to you. You have to please us, dance to our tune. And many of these social media platforms did. And then along came Elon Musk. And Elon Musk said, I'm not going to dance to that tune. I think that your tune is stupid. I think that your tune is monopolistic. And this is why the panic has said, and this is why the media are now attempting to treat Elon Musk as though he has some sort of threat to freedom. I love their line. Their line is Elon Musk is a threat to freedom. Billionaires in charge of major platforms are our threat to freedom, except for Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and George Soros and all billionaires. We like those guys are not a threat to freedom, no matter how many billions of dollars they set into the Western democratic system. They're all those with good ones. But Elon Musk is a bad one. Why? Because he disagrees with us. I mean, he might break the monopoly. We'll get to much more in just 1 second. We still have to get to Joe Biden celebrating an extraordinarily tepid and actually quite negative economic report. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Of course, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course possibly subscribe if you're up for it. I'm gonna get back to work. I want to thank you guys